rise to fame was nothing short of meteoric. One minute, he was a penniless musician struggling to make ends meet. The next, he was the hottest act in town. He played at local bars that slowly grew into packed venues. His banjo, now his most prized possession, became a symbol of his success. Word spread quickly about the young man with the hauntingly beautiful music. Before long, people were calling him the String King, after the famous musician who had disappeared years ago. He barely spent more than a day at any one place. Each performance seemed to take him to new heights, new cities, new faces. Everywhere he went, the crowds were bigger, the applause louder, and the money plenty. Everywhere he went, the crowds grew, the money flowed, and the women, and even men, wanted to be with him. His name was on everyone's lips. He was the hottest thing in music. At one of the old bars where he had once been humiliated and thrown out, the manager came crawling back. "Jidenna," the manager pleaded, eyes wide with desperation. "We're struggling here, man. The sales are down. The place is dead. Come back and perform for us. You know you're the only one who can bring in the crowd." Jidenna looked at him, then at the bar, his lips curling into a smile. He shook his head. "Nah, man. You turned me away once. Now look at you." He laughed, the sound mocking but with a touch of satisfaction. "I'll pass. Good luck with your little bar." He turned his back and walked away, the sound of his laughter echoing behind him. As the months passed, Jidenna's obsession with the banjo deepened. He couldn't explain it, but it felt like the instrument had a life of its own. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, he'd wake up to the sound of strings being plucked, as though the banjo were calling him. It was as though it were alive, urging him to play, to create. He barely had time to eat, his life consumed by practice, performance, and the incessant demands of his newfound fame. His fingers bled from the hours of practice, but the banjo seemed to heal him. The more he played, the better he became. His music wasn't just music anymore, it was an experience. And as he played, he began to notice something strange about his audience. The atmosphere in the room would shift, depending on the songs he played. It was subtle at first, just a gentle change in the energy. But soon it became impossible to ignore. When he played a love song, the crowd seemed to become more affectionate. Couples would hold hands and whisper sweet words to each other, and occasionally, men would get on one knee to propose. Jidenna had witnessed 20 marriage proposals in just 1 week. It was when he sang about lust that things began to get wild. The bar would transform. People, once composed and respectable, would suddenly lose all inhibitions. The air would heat up as men and women started undressing, their bodies entwined with an intensity that shocked even Jidenna. He'd seen things he didn't know were possible, things happening right in front of his eyes. People, strangers, would forget themselves entirely. It was as though the music commanded them to give in to their deepest desires. And it wasn't just love or lust. One night, he sang a new song about the struggles the country was facing, about war, poverty, and hardship. The moment the last note left his lips, the room erupted into chaos. People started fighting. The atmosphere turned dangerous. Jidenna had to leave, his heart racing in fear. It wasn't just that the music was connecting with the audience, it was controlling them, and he was loving it. All he needed to do was to get more bodyguards who would always wear earbuds to cover their ears and protect him during his performances. He was lucky that no one could figure out the pattern. The songs were never repeated in the same way, and never held the same theme for long. It was as if the banjo itself was in charge, pulling the strings and deciding what would happen next. And Jidenna? He was nothing more than a conduit, a vessel for the banjo's will. Jidenna now lived in a big house, surrounded by luxury, and far from the life he used to know. Fame, money, and success, he had it all. But something didn't feel right. He was always on the road, always performing. His music was now a way of life, but he felt empty inside. One evening, while he was sitting alone in his grand living room, strumming the banjo, there was a knock at the door. If you have come this far, it means you are enjoying the story. Please click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, then hit the like button for more stories. New stories every week. He paused, his fingers stilling on the strings. He wasn't expecting anyone. Jidenna opened the door, and for a moment he stood frozen. His wife stared at him, eyes wide with disbelief. Their daughter clung to her side, her eyes round, the same look Jidenna once had when he was a boy. Thoughts rushed through his mind like a flood. He'd completely forgotten about them. The pain, the absence, all of it. His daughter, just like him, even had the same cheeky grin. As soon as he breathed her name, Amanda, she slapped him across the face. The slap stung, but it was the banjo, sitting in the corner, that reacted first. It let out a harsh, discordant strum, the sound sharp enough to make Jidenna wince. Amanda didn't flinch. She slapped him again. And again, the banjo responded, its strings singing a note of agony. Jidenna held his face, eyes stinging with shame and regret. Amanda's tears came next. "Why didn't you come find me, Jidenna?" Her voice broke as she spoke. "Did you not get my letter? I tried. I ran away after I healed. I came looking for you, but they said you weren't there. I was sent back to my father. And when I got back, he slapped me. Hard. I can't hear properly anymore, Jidenna. You've done this to me." Jidenna's heart dropped into his stomach. The words hit harder than the slap. He stepped forward, pulling her into his arms, hugging her as though the weight of the world had just come crashing down. The banjo wailed again. Amanda pulled away slightly, staring at him. "Jidenna, you've lost so much weight. You weren't this lean before, even when we had nothing. What happened to you?" He sighed, lowering his head. "I've been working to make something of myself. I wanted to be somebody for you. For us." Amanda shook her head, disappointment clouding her features. "At the expense of your health? Your life, Jidenna?" She moved towards the room, her hands trembling as she spotted the banjo lying in the corner. Jidenna looked over at the instrument, an unspoken connection tugging at him. But when he stood and moved to pick it up, Amanda grabbed it first, slipping it into a bag. He felt a flicker of anger rise in him, but it was fleeting. His daughter came to him, her innocent eyes looking up at him, and all the fury vanished in an instant. Jidenna wondered where that anger had come from, but shook it off. He breathed deeply, deciding then and there he'd make time for his family. "I'm sorry, Amanda," he said quietly. "I'll make it right. I'll fix this." She smiled faintly, and for the first time in ages, Jidenna felt a weight lift off his chest. They spent the next few weeks together, eating meals, visiting the park, taking long walks. Jidenna bought his daughter toys. They laughed, they talked. The banjo stayed locked away in the bag. For a while, the music faded. But then, Jidenna received a call. It was an invitation to perform at the governor's daughter's wedding. He told Amanda and their daughter excitedly, "I'm going to sing the song I wrote for you, the one that made you fall in love with me, even when I was just a poor musician with nothing." The day of the wedding, they arrived at the reception. It was grand, food, drinks, laughter. Jidenna felt good, standing before the crowd, his wife and daughter by his side. The atmosphere was filled with joy, and he was ready to play his heart out. As he got up to perform, he smiled at Amanda, who had taken their daughter to join the guests across the room. But when he strummed the first note, something shifted inside him. The banjo hummed under his fingers, and as he sang, his heart was filled with love and happiness, until, out of nowhere, a cold wave of dread washed over him. He frowned as his eyes met Amanda's and his daughter, who smiled at him. Something was wrong. The music changed. Without him knowing why, his voice shifted into a deeper, darker tone. He sang about war, about pain, about the struggles he'd faced growing up. At first the crowd was silent. Then the tension started to build. The bride suddenly stood up, her face twisted in anger. "You're a liar!" she shouted at the groom, her voice breaking. "You cheated on me!" Then to the crowd, she screamed even louder. "He has been sleeping with our gateman!" The room erupted in chaos. People shouted and pushed each other, the air thick with anger. Then Jidenna heard it. A scream. His daughter. He turned just in time to see one of the wedding guests, their hand raised high, a knife in it. The blade sank into her side. "No!" Jidenna screamed, rushing forward, but before he could reach her, the security guards grabbed him, pulling him away from the fight. Blood spilled everywhere. Jidenna didn't care about his safety. He struggled with them to let him go. "My wife and my child," he screamed. He only wanted his wife and daughter. He fought to get to them, and they took all of them out of the hall, the banjo hanging behind Jidenna. Finally, they were out of the chaos. The bodyguards ushered him away, and he held his daughter in his arms, her small body limp and covered in blood. Amanda was crying profusely. As they drove away, Amanda's mind began to make sense of it all. Though she was partly deaf, she could still catch snatches of the song. She distinctly remembered the shift in her emotions when Jidenna's music played, how her feelings changed when she focused on it, and when she was facing him. When the music shifted, anger stirred inside her. But when she wasn't facing him, when the sound didn't hit her directly, her emotions felt neutral. The sudden, sharp change in how she felt when the sound hit her ears directly and when it didn't was impossible to ignore. Something wasn't right. They got to the hospital, and Jidenna, his banjo hanging behind him, carried his daughter and with Amanda. They both ran to the hospital. Amanda was crying profusely. The doctors took her daughter in and asked them to sit on the chairs at the reception. As they both sat down, the realization hit Amanda like a slap to the face. She turned to Jidenna, her voice shaking with both fear and anger. "It's the music, Jidenna. It's the banjo." Jidenna looked at her, his expression blank. What do you mean?" "Don't you see?" she cried. "The music, it's not just songs. It's controlling them. It's feeding them whatever it wants. When you played about love, they acted loving. When you sang about war, they fought. And now, look at what it's done. Look at our daughter." Jidenna's face paled as the truth sank in. "Jidenna," she said, her voice breaking, "the banjo has to go." Jidenna stared at her, his hands trembling as he held the instrument. What do you mean?" Amanda's voice shook with anger and sadness as she reached for the banjo, but Jidenna pulled it away from her, a fierce look in his eyes. "No," he said, his voice cold. "You don't understand. This is my chance, Amanda. This is how I get to the top. I can't stop now." "Look at us!" Amanda screamed. "Your daughter is fighting for her life because of this cursed banjo?" She tried to take it from him. There was a struggle as Jidenna tried to resist her. He pushed her to the ground and picked the banjo up. Amanda was shocked. It was as though she was invisible as Jidenna checked if any part of the banjo had been damaged. His hands trembled as he ran his fingers over the banjo, checking every string. He was too distracted to hear the doctor's footsteps approaching or Amanda running to meet them. They lingered by the door, their faces grim, until Amanda's screams broke the silence. Jide, our daughter is gone." Her voice cracked with grief, the words tearing at him more than any physical wound ever could, yet he didn't react. His eyes were still fixed on the banjo, every fiber of his being consumed with the thought that it had to be intact, that it had to be fine. "Jide, listen to me!" Amanda screamed again, shaking him by the shoulder, but he barely noticed. "She lost too much blood, Jide." Her voice wavered as if her spirit was unraveling right there in front of him. "Just give me a minute," Jidenna mumbled, his voice flat. He was still checking the strings, making sure nothing was broken. The banjo was the only thing that mattered right now. Amanda stepped back, shocked and furious. "It was a mistake for me to come back," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this. I just can't." She turned and ran out of the hospital room, leaving him alone with the banjo. He wanted to go after her, but how could he do that when he was not sure if the banjo was working perfectly? He had to be sure. After he was satisfied that the banjo was okay, he discussed with the doctors on what to do and the mortuary arrangements and left the hospital. It was when he had safely kept the banjo in its room and lay down on his bed did he begin to think normally again. Everything felt wrong. The house was empty. His daughter was gone. Amanda was gone. He felt numb. Jidenna cried, harder than he ever had before, his shoulders shaking with the weight of his grief. The pain of losing his daughter was a raw, unbearable ache. He reached for his phone, hoping to hear Amanda's voice, hoping for some sign of life. But the call went unanswered. His heart pounded in his chest as he lay on the couch, the banjo on the other room. The night was quiet, the stillness hanging in the air like a suffocating blanket. And then it began. Thank you so much for sticking to the story till the end. Please subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so that you get notified when we upload new videos. A new video will be uploaded every week.